And welcome back to the Midday Show. The headlines. I'm excited to talk to you today. There's some polling stuff that's kind of crazy. There's some financial things. There's a Miley Cyrus story that I know you love Miley Cyrus. We got some science stuff. I have a really, I didn't mention this to you. I have a really good debate for you at the end. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling like, obviously, some days you're not really excited to talk to me.
That was good, and that was fair. That was
I mean, how else am I supposed to? I'm really excited to talk to you today. Would imply that most days you kind of like could take it or leave it.
No, that's it's funny. I told you this before. There are moments where, like, if we don't do this for an extended period of time, like we just had the 2 weeks off over winter, and now just because of MLK Day, we had an extended time off. It does, like, the world feels tilted sometimes. Because it is like, it's not like a venting or a ranting, or it's just
it's therapeutic.
A little bit. Like, you get your thoughts out, you're going back and forth, and then all of a sudden, like, you don't do it for a couple of days, and it is kind of like, oh, like, what's
I remember doing sports talk. I've done a lot of sports talk radio in my life, and there was a point. There's a point where it became a grind.
Yeah.
And there were days you showed up because you had to, and there wasn't a whole lot, and you're searching for things to talk about.
Sure.
And then there are days that, when I in between gigs or when I was whatever, when something would happen, I'd be like, I would love to talk about this.
Yeah.
And it might be something, like, because we often find normal topics that are hot button topics and look at it from a different angle.
Sure.
And a lot of mine aren't just like, oh, they should have gone for it. They should have kicked a field goal. They should have fouled instead of letting the guy shoot a three.
Sure.
So, yes, I do know what you mean. There are times that I'm like, it would be fun to do a show today.
Well, a lot of the stuff that I have written down here today, I will have you know, we do have, like, behind the scenes midday show producers that are constantly saying, talk about this, talk about that. So most of the things that I found today were people, like, sincerely asked for them. Like, they really want.
Oh, I thought you were kidding at first.
Oh, no, I'm being dead serious.
You mean like people who watch the show? Because in here, not only is it just us two,
yes,
the other people in the office really have nothing to do with us two. They kind of tell us to go back.
I was going to say, probably by choice.
By their choice, yes. They want us, like, locked in the back so we don't get in their way. Correct.
Yes, that's a fair. No, these are real. I actually changed the group chat this morning and renamed it Midday Show Producers, because these are the things that they want to know. I didn't know. I mean, I want to start with, because I want to get it out of the way, but I do think it's fascinating to mention. Obviously, everyone's already looking towards 2024 after we got through the midterms. Data came out over the weekend
for the election, as you're talking about. Not like, it's not because people have already given up on their resolutions. They're like, oh, that one's over. Had it for 4 days. Let's wait till next year.
Depending on the economy, people might start wishing it was 2024.
Well, that's true.
Polling data came out. You and I have talked a lot about what all this means heading forward to 2024. The data that came out for the GOP primary, Trump is crushing DeSantis. Now, before you and I go back and forth a little bit, I do want to say, you and I have talked about polling in America is maybe the worst it's ever been.
It is inexact. We will say that.
It is very difficult. And it's not for a lack of trying. It's just, it's difficult to do now. More difficult than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. However, the data is pretty shocking. Trump is holding a 17-point lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in this polling. Right now, Trump has 48% of support among potential Republican primary voters. Now, when I say that, that is based off of this poll.
Right.
Could be more.
Who did the poll? Does it say?
Yeah, I can find out for you right here. It is from The Hill. It was done by Morning Consult Polling. So I'm assuming
sounds official.
I'm assuming it's a firm that does polling and surveys across the country. Another interesting one. Trump had 48. There's Ron DeSantis with 31. The next two in line.
Hold on, let me guess.
Go ahead.
Reagan?
Nope.
No?
Not Reagan.
I'm not sure. I don't even know who else to guess.
Mike Pence was 3.
No way.
Liz Cheney was 4.
I believe that. But with what? Like 4% and 2%?
Pence with 8%, Cheney with 3%, Cruz actually sliding in there at 2%.
Mike Pence had 8%?
Yes.
That's shocking to me. I wouldn't have thought Mike Pence would have got 8 votes, like family members included.
Well, I think if you're religious right and that's your biggest thing, maybe. I mean, is that
that makes sense?
Is that where
no,
that
I hadn't thought that angle.
Falling?
That makes sense.
That'd be my naive guess is where that could be coming from. Way bigger lead than I would have expected.
Agreed.
I've said to you before, I just think what's happened over the last couple of months has kind of put Trump back into
he's in the conversation every day.
Back into the forefront. And I think I think everything that happens moving forward, I don't think if you're a fan of politics, if you're someone who enjoys talking about it or thinking about it, I don't think it's unfair to put every context of what happens into, does it help or hurt Trump? I honestly think, because we talked about with the Biden documents, for me, everyone was like, well, it's not as bad or it is as bad, all that stuff. I don't even think that's the fascinating debate. To me, the fascinating debate was, does it help Trump's candidacy for 2024? And I think it very clearly has.
And I agree with you from the standpoint. If you would have asked me the polls, and I had not seen one lately, I don't think I would have said Trump was losing. But the gap would not have been that big. I was surprised at the gap when you told me.
Yes, I was really, really surprised. So I just wanted to mention that only because we've talked about it so much. And these are really the first numbers we've gotten since everyone was so focused on the midterms. This is the first polling data we've gotten from the fallout of the midterms and kind of moving forward.
By the way, you notice how like glowing you are and you're like angelic over there and I'm like this cave dweller?
I don't know if I've ever been called angelic. I think here's what's crazy about that is my computer is way older than your computer, right? This is your new computer? Or you still
No, it's my new one.
That's what's really, really bizarre about that one. I'll let you turn the light on tomorrow. We go back and forth. You dominate the light, though.
It's because I usually get here first.
You dominate the light. I have some other stuff here. Miley Cyrus. I want to talk to you about Brady and Rogers. There's a Bitcoin thing. Ozone layer. What do you want?
I want to mention before we get there because we missed MLK Day and then we missed MLK Day again. Just my historical tidbit. I listened to the speech yesterday. I listened to it again every year. I think it's like 13 minutes long, and you can find good recordings of it, videos of it actually on YouTube.
Yeah.
And in his written speech, the phrase "I have a dream" is not there. Mm-hmm. It is, he'd used it before. They didn't want him to regurgitate new material. And when you watch it for probably the first 2/3 of it, I didn't time it because I was in the car when I was listening yesterday. For probably the first 2/3 of it, it sounds like an eloquent, he had a PhD. He was very educated, and it sounded like an educated, well-written speech using a lot of big words.
I've heard the first half described as procedural, is how I've heard it described.
Maybe.
Okay.
I would have said it sounded almost not educational because that's the wrong word. Lecture? But learned. It sounded like a lecture. Okay. Yes. And then about 2/3 of the way into it, he went from being like highly intelligent PhD to Baptist preacher. And you can also tell with the video that I saw, as you see him, he's obviously reading the speech. Mm-hmm. And then he got to a point where he didn't look down for like 3 minutes. Yeah. And he just started pulling stuff out and naming places, and it became much simpler, but the crowd started responding. The first half of the speech is almost done to silence. Mm-hmm. Like, it is not uproarious. It's not the crowds like yelling and screaming. Mm-hmm. And it is so, and he has other catchphrases that he went over, like "now is the time." He said "now," and he did that. That was one of them. And throughout the course of there were other things that he went back to other than "I have a dream." And it's just fascinating the way history works, that it's known as the "I have a dream" speech, but he was never supposed to say, and it's not it. There's a copy of it in the Smithsonian or something like that. So that's just my neat little historical tidbit.
No, that's pretty neat. I'm actually going to I'm going to go watch Mansfield University play basketball tonight, watch some of my former players, but they're doing kind of like an MLK appreciation thing tonight. So
who they got?
They have Kutztown tonight.
How's Kutztown?
Worse than what they usually are. They're down a little bit. It should be a very good game tonight.
There you go.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But they're going to do like this MLK thing. They have an appreciation day. I think all the Commonwealth. So I think it's Bloomsburg, Lock Haven, and Mansfield. Their athletes, some community service stuff, community engagement. It's all based around MLK appreciation. And then for the games, it's free admission. So if you live near Bloomsburg or Lock Haven or Mansfield and they have home games tonight, I'm pretty sure it's free admission to get in.
What will they draw tonight?
It all depends. It's hit or miss. Our kids on campus, now most kids are back on campus.
Most kids should be back.
So obviously that helps
Yeah.
significantly. A lot of times, especially at Mansfield, weather.
I can imagine.
If
it's cold and miserable, the kids don't want to walk over.
And not only that, but people don't want to get out of their homes. They're warm,
it makes cozy.
Sense. So it's a different attendance battles in the Commonwealth are very different than attendance.
It's not like at Duke and Carolina where people are getting there.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
Very different battle. But it all depends. Depends on the matchup. Depends on the weather. But this is the other weird thing for college sports right now, especially state schools. I know we're going on a tangent. The facilities are just bigger than what they probably need to be. Because at the time, those were the facilities. To have a college gymnasium in your area, that's where you hosted everything. And that was your shelter. And now you don't really need them as much. So now these gyms, you can put 150, 200 people in them and it feels like they're cavernous. Like you can hear the echoes and it's like nobody's in there. So it is, the irony is you have these really nice facilities kind of across Pennsylvania, but to fill them up takes a lot. And then you go to a normal game and it just feels empty and it's not a great environment.
No, I'm with you.
It's a struggle for state schools.
For sure. I'm with you.
I want to talk to you about the Miley Cyrus thing.
I'm ready.
This will be because I think this is really, really interesting. I had said to you on first listen and after talking with some people this morning, I think it's probably maybe the pettiest song ever done or ever written.
Pettiest.
Now,
You're So Vain.
You're So Vain. So here, before we dive into it, you had mentioned Justin Timberlake did Cry Me a River, which supposedly was about Britney Spears. In the music video, there's this little angel figurine that apparently had something to do. It was a tattoo Britney had, or it was something, a painting she had. So there were all these little Easter eggs in the video. And it was kind of petty because Justin Timberlake's telling Britney Spears, Cry Me a River. It could have been yours, but it's not.
The first one I thought of, other than You're So Vain, was Bieber's Love Yourself.
That one's pretty good. Do you know who wrote Love Yourself?
No. They are my hero. Before you even tell me.
Well, it's Ed Sheeran.
Did he really?
He actually wrote, and the original title was F Yourself.
The first time I ever heard the song, I was driving my kid to elementary school.
Okay.
And he loved whatever 97.7, whatever, and that's all he listened to. And I remember driving him there and saying, "Oh my God, this song is F Yourself." Yeah. And it is brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. So there's actual footage on YouTube. You can find Ed Sheeran putting the song together on a tour bus. From the beginning all the way to him coming up with the hook to the chords and then everything else. But really, really fascinating. I think Ariana Grande just did one more recently that was about Pete Davidson.
Okay.
So there's and we had mentioned Fleetwood. To me, Fleetwood Mac.
Well, Fleetwood Mac had a couple.
Yes.
And there's also Ice Cube and Eazy-E, they kind of had their.
That's true.
I
didn't. You know what's funny? I didn't put rap battles in the
whole diss track,
but that makes complete sense. That's petty.
They might have been the first couple. Yeah. Ice Cube and Eazy-E.
I need to
I'm not even a rap guy. I just have seen Straight Outta Compton.
I didn't put rap beefs into that. Now I need to reconsider the concept of the pettiest song ever. So here's a couple of coincidence. First, the Flower lyrics. The song is called Flowers. It's a very good current song.
Okay.
Apparently, Miley Cyrus and one of the Hemsworth brothers were dating.
Okay.
They met on, I think it was The Last Song was the movie. It was back in 2013.
They would have had some attractive kids, don't you think?
Yes, they would have. So I wanted to dig it up because I wanted to make sure that I got the story correct. So the pair met, it was actually 2009 while filming The Last Song. It was a movie adaptation of a Nicholas Sparks novel. So obviously a lot of touching, a lot of romance, a lot of different things there. They were on again, off again. They got engaged in 2012. They postponed their wedding in April of 2013 and then called it all off together that September. Okay. So already kind of...
So it's 10 years old.
Oh, yeah. This has been going on for a while. So after a few years apart, they got back together. Okay. There you go. They got back together early 2016. They got engaged. They tied the knot in December of 2018. They then separated in 2019 and then officially got divorced right at the beginning of COVID, February 2020. Okay. So you go through all of that. Here's some of the coincidences. Flowers is referring to the relationship began when Cyrus announced his January 13th release date, aka the Hunger Game actor's 33rd birthday. So she released the song on Hemsworth's birthday.
Okay.
So that's the first catch.
Okay.
There is also the lyrics of the song line up with a Bruno Mars sad song that apparently Liam Hemsworth had sent to her. So in the Miley Cyrus song, she says, "I can buy myself flowers." And Bruno Mars has the song, should have bought you flowers.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And then
by the way, which is a great Bruno Mars song.
It's a really good Bruno Mars. So apparently Liam Hemsworth at some point sent her the song of
what's it called? When I Was Your Man.
I Was Your Man. Okay, so apparently Hemsworth dedicated the song to her at some point.
So okay, now hold on. Let me just jump in. And I love Miley Cyrus, but he's like, that is I blew it. The Bruno Mars song is I blew it. Mm-hmm. These are all the things I should have done when I was your man.
Yes.
And he's like, I should have brought you flowers. And she's like, yeah, I can buy my own flowers.
Yes.
Well, bleepity, 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 bleep.
Yes. And if you go along with the chorus of the Bruno Mars songs, it goes perfectly with the Miley Cyrus song. So basically should have bought you flowers, should have held your hand.
Yes.
The next lyric in the Miley Cyrus song is, I can hold my own hand.
Nice.
So she basically takes When I Was Your Man, which was dedicated to her by Miley Cyrus, and writes this chorus that is just her basically saying, like, I got it. Like, I don't need any of it. I can do it myself. I've got it. And so the song is called Flowers. It's a really, to me, maybe the pettiest song ever.
And how about, so this is where my mind just went.
Okay.
How about Bruno Mars the first time he hears it? He's got to feel like the coolest guy in the world.
So I went back and forth.
Not that he already didn't. Don't get me wrong.
I'm with you.
He ain't struggling.
It's so funny you say that, because literally my third search when I started looking into this was, I literally typed in Miley Cyrus friends with Bruno Mars, because I was trying to find something that linked them.
Okay.
Because to me, like, there's a good chance they know each other.
I'm sure.
Like, what are the odds that like Miley called up Bruno? It's like, I got this great idea. Like, I have this idea for this song. And now I'm not.
Okay. Now I didn't go that way. I'm thinking that Bruno's sitting there and one day one of his like people comes in and says, listen to this. And he just laughs and laughs and laughs because it's just great. Speaking, are you done on that, or can I go on another?
No, you can. I mean, there's some other little tidbits.
I'm going to look at it because I don't know the song.
Okay, she mentions that there's a reference to a house burning down, which their house burnt down in 2018.
Who? Andre Rison and Lisa Left Eye?
Cyrus and Hemsworth?
No. Do you know that story?
I do not know that story. I know Left Eye, but I don't know the story.
Wasn't it Lisa?
Lisa Left Eye Lopez.
I know she's passed away now from the accident, right? Mm-hmm. Wasn't it? I think it was her that she burned his house down. I don't know. It was a domestic, and Andre Rison he was a superstar
Buffalo
football
Bills,
player. No,
right?
with the Falcons, Atlanta Falcons, and they were in a domestic spat.
Okay.
And apparently he had a large sneaker collection.
Okay.
And she was pissed off about him spending money on sneakers and all this stuff, and he said they couldn't afford something else when he had 50,000 pair of sneakers or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So I guess in the past, when she was angry to display her anger, she threw a box of sneakers in the bathtub and burned them.
Okay.
So they would burn in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, since then they had remodeled and they went from the cast iron old bathtubs to the plastic ones.
Okay.
So she did it again. When it heated up, it melted the bathtub and dropped down through the floor and the whole house burned down.
Okay. Interesting. I had never heard that before.
So if you're trying to make a statement by lighting something in the house, make sure whatever is holding it right now can hit like a porcelain sink.
Sure.
maybe you should just light it out in the driveway just for symbolic purposes.
I've never burnt my ex's things, but if I did.
If I could not properly display how angry I was without lighting it on fire.
There is one other thing. In the video, she wears a oversized suit. People are speculating the suit looks identical to a suit that Liam Hemsworth wore on the red carpet with her. And it's oversized on her, and it looks identical. So they think she wore his suit in the music video.
It is Liam and not Chris, is that?
It is Liam.
It's Liam, okay.
The last part was, so Bruno Mars, I should have bought you flowers and held your hand. Cyrus says, I can buy my own flowers, I can hold my own hands. Should have gave you all my hours when I had the chance. Cyrus says, I can take myself dancing and I can hold my own hand. Yeah, I can love me better than you can. Because all you wanted to do was watch you dance. Now my baby's dancing. She's dancing with another man. So the lyrics are like just hand in hand together. That's really awesome. Nice. So there you go. So that's the Miley Cyrus drama. Right now it has my vote for the pettiest. Someone just mentioned Hit 'Em Up is the best diss track ever. I don't know. I guess the difference would be diss and petty, right?
Probably, yes.
It would be just because you can diss somebody and not necessarily be petty about it.
No, I do get what you're saying. There's a
bluntness to the diss.
Yes, okay. There's a debate for that. Yeah, the petty is a little bit more petty. Like You're So Vain when she wouldn't say who it was about.
Yeah, that's true. They mentioned Tupac and Biggie just as far as like going.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one too.
I forgot about this. She does idolize Stevie Nicks. So this song.
Have you ever heard hers? I don't understand because she was Hannah Montana, because she's Ray Cyrus's kid. And because she went through that, I think Bieber did it. And those guys trying to grow up in public and not have the teeny bopper aspect, it's hard. It has to be impossible for these people. You know, swinging naked on the wrecking ball or whatever. She kind of went through her naked phase. And,
sure.
But she can sing. Oh, yeah. And she does, if you ever find on YouTube her doing any Stevie Nicks stuff, she kills it.
Yeah, crushes it.
I don't know why. I think she's going to do a Super Bowl one of these years. And I've said that to people and they've told me I'm crazy, and I don't see why I'm crazy.
No, I think she will. Maybe you could make the argument a little early. When you look at when other people got the Super Bowl, it's a little early. But I'm with you. Like 10 years from now, could I see Miley?
She's coming. It might not even be that long, but yes, I'm with you.
Everybody here acting like they forgot about Mariah Carey's song "Obsessed," which put Eminem in his place. Do you remember that song? She put a song out, and the song basically went, "Why are you so obsessed with me?" And just kind of this idea of someone basically all but stalking her.
Eminem did, really?
And it was about Eminem. It basically was, but see, Eminem had dissed her several times in different songs.
Did they date?
It's a good question. I don't know if they
did he try to date her?
I'm sure. I would imagine I would imagine most people in Hollywood.
Oh, that's the story I wanted to tell you. Did you ever hear this? You're kind of a Michael Jordan fan a little bit. You think he was an above average player?
I think he's the greatest athlete of all time. Go ahead.
Did you ever hear the story? They were on a bus going from the arena to the airport or whatever, because it's not like the Bulls take buses from places except from the arena to the airport. So they were all talking about like who they could get in touch with. And this is back in the 90s when cell phones were just kind of coming around.
Sure.
And they're like, hey, can you get in touch with this person? Can you get in touch with this person? And people, they're going through, and these are all professional athletes. They're like, oh no, my agent knows this and blah, blah, blah. And this is how, and they're just playing this, 7 degrees or 6 degrees of separation and stuff. And then he said, what about Janet Jackson? And they're like, no way. Nobody can get. They're like, he can't even get in touch with Janet Jackson. And they said Jordan's sitting in the back of the bus, not even involved in the conversation, but close enough he can hear. Yeah. And they're like, that's what was said. It's kind of like the gauntlet was thrown. He can't even get in touch with Janet. They said everyone's quiet. Jordan pulls out his phone, does this a second, picks it up and goes, yo, Janet, it's MJ. And they're like, oh my God, he can call anyone. So I don't know if there's any truth. And he might have just been like, he might have been talking to his kid. Like, who knows? but that's how the legend goes.
So some of the best sports stuff in those, because all these documentaries are coming out now, right?
Right.
And it has all the footage of there's the Dream Team one. One of the funniest things is they have LeBron James, and he actually has a CD, like a Walkman.
Oh, a CD. Yes, yes.
And the best part is they ask him what he's listening to, and he has a CD that's not even out yet. Right. And the same thing in The Last Dance, Jordan has kind of like a Walkman with the funny things. And he's like, they're like, what do you listen to? He's like, oh, it's whatever. It comes out in, 2 months. There is a whole underground for athletes and new music that I think would be a fascinating story that no one's tapped into, because these dudes are getting these things hot off of the record label.
Right.
I mean, they're getting stuff 2-3 months before like the rest of us, but it's just like this little side note that just kind of history that I feel like no one's ever really like dove into. Like if I was Justin Bieber and I make a track, who's getting to hear that track? Like, who are the first 100 people getting to hear that track? Because in 1993, the answer was Michael Jordan.
Right.
And in 2003, the answer was LeBron James. Right. And I don't know, there's a whole story there about,
because people don't understand. They think it's like, like you're making dinner. Like it's done and now it goes.
Right.
And the record's done, so we'll put it out Saturday.
Yes.
Like it is done and then it's promoted. And then there's this whole intricate marketing plan of how to get this person around. And it's so when it is finally, and then you figure like however many, say there's 10 songs on the album. They don't all get finished at the same time.
Right.
One of them gets finished first.
Yep.
So who like, hey, well, this one's done. We're still working on these, but so that is interesting.
That whole thing would be fascinating. Heather, she's too much of a loose cannon to do the Super Bowl right now. She needs to be less spontaneous.
Whoa. Prince did it.
I still think the Michael Jackson Standing in Silence is one of the greatest shows.
No, but I mean from a loose cannon standpoint.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, I can see what you're saying.
I mean, I think Prince begged for it.
For the Super Bowl?
For the Super Bowl.
I think everyone begs for the Super Bowl.
Maybe.
I get your point.
But, and then he went out. So, like, I don't think anyone. Do you know how much money people make?
Well, real quick, like as a naive person, what was the fear with Prince doing
that
the
he's
Super
just
Bowl?
so eccentric. That, like, what if he doesn't show up?
Okay.
What if he decides the way I'm going to make headlines is to I'm going to be late. I'm going to be
like. What if he doesn't show up?
What if
was that a real thing for Prince?
I don't know.
What if he doesn't show up?
I mean, he's just Prince was a different kind of cat, man.
Yeah.
And he was an artist to an artist, like. But his show, you know the famous line when it poured.
Yeah.
And they said, is there anything that we can do? And he said, yeah, make it rain harder.
Yeah.
And then he just went out and he's in stilettos and he's like, he's just killing it.
Here's what's funny. So for me personally, I never thought Miley Cyrus was that far off her rocker.
I don't think she is.
Like
unless I'm missing something.
When I think back to what Britney Spears wore at award shows or her music videos, and I think like even Madonna, which like I was never a huge Madonna fan, but like when you're younger and you're introduced to Madonna, it's like, oh, what is this? I never thought of Miley Cyrus doing something that was so like absurd, like think of it this way, like Britney Spears and them had the kiss at the award show where they kissed
Madonna and Christina Aguilera.
Yeah. I can't think of something Miley Cyrus did in the public forum that was a step above that. That like was like so like, oh my god.
Yeah, I would have to look. That's a good point.
I don't know. I just never thought of her that way.
I just saw her as like the rebellious teenager that, it was almost like she was the goody two, Hannah Montana, and she's the goody two shoes. She's the goody two shoes high school kid who then went off to college and didn't want to be goody two shoes anymore.
Sure.
And I just think, except she did it in show business because that's where her life was.
Yeah,
but absolutely. I think who is doing the Super Bowl this year? Do we know?
We talked about it. Rihanna.
That's right. I knew we knew, but I couldn't remember.
It is severely underrated right now. Imagine John Stockton in his Dream Team warm-ups answering that question with the same answer as MJ. John Stockton didn't have a Walkman. Do you think John Stockton had a Walkman? I don't think John Stockton had a Walkman.
Yeah, he did, but it played cassettes.
that was the difference.
Like mine did in 1983.
Well, no, but that's what I like. I don't picture John Stockton sitting on the bus with the headphones on his ears.
He had.
I don't picture.
He had it. But like, whereas Jordan had like the CD and it was like burnt. Stockton had a Memorex tape and he had to copy it from Jordan. Because he didn't get it.
That's what it was. Real quick, I want to fly through some of these. These are stories that are being a little underreported. Have you seen the price of eggs lately?
I saw a meme about eggs.
Skyrocketing, really, really expensive. And it has to do with the avian flu.
So
just a little bit underreported, especially here in the state of Pennsylvania. I just saw a story recently. The state is actually telling people that if you have chickens, they should remain inside. So whether it's your own personal chickens or if you have, this huge facility and you're keeping them in a coop. But basically all birds should be kept inside right now because of the avian flu. And that is why the price of eggs are so high.
Interesting.
Yes.
Good thing I don't like eggs.
I'd mentioned to you the Bitcoin thing. This is just this isn't really like a good or bad. I just find it fascinating. Bitcoin is the highest yielding asset right now.
Since January 1st.
Since January 1st.
It's what'd you say, 28%?
26%. So
that's a good return, right?
It's good. It's solid.
In 2.5 weeks?
It's solid. The other part of it, because I used first I said the word safe and I immediately corrected myself because it's not the safest place to put your money, but it is like if from January 1st you wanted to win, Bitcoin was the place to put it as of right now. They've also made up for any losses during the FTX scandal. So any value that was lost the day that the FTX scandal was announced has officially been made back. Now, it could go to zero tomorrow. It could go to $1 million tomorrow. You don't know with this stuff. But I found that really, really fascinating because I don't think that's how most people view it right now.
No, I agree.
I think they see the asset differently. So that's a little bit underreported. And then the other one I mentioned to you too, the ozone layer. The ozone layer is actually on track to recover. There is a report on NPR that within the next decade or so, they believe that the ozone could be almost 50% recovered from its worst standpoint. So I don't know what we're doing.
I
don't know what we're doing, but we're doing something.
Well, we talked. We were just talking the other day off the air about one of the shocking things about nature to me is how they make these projections because they don't know and they're just trying to use their best data. And then during COVID, when pretty much the world just stopped driving, is really what happened. I don't know how much industry shut down but I know like nobody went anywhere because there was nowhere to go and there was nothing to do. And how quickly they talked about how the environment was healing itself because there was so much less pollution. So, that is all this nature stuff about nature getting better. And we talked before the show about when George Carlin came out and was like, the earth will be here long after we are.
Correct.
It will survive. It always does.
Yes.
So
I agree. There is I want to talk about it at some point in the future because I don't have the exact details in front of me. There was a guy.
Whoa. Why do we need details to talk about things?
That's true. We don't. So there was on the Joe Rogan podcast, he has all these kind of like nature experts on, and they'll talk about different just animals that were extinct and searching for different animals and all that. So it's really interesting conversations. One of the most recent conversations he had with a guy by the name of Forrest Galanti, he is like an extinct species expert. So he goes around, he digs up fossils, remains, he searches for animals that they think are extinct to see if they're still out there or not. Really interesting guy. There is a company right now, and again, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to find it for you someday. There's a company right now that is going to make woolly mammoths. They have bought land. Have you seen this? They have bought land in like the Russian tundra, and their plan is within the next 10 years, they plan to have 6 digits worth of woolly mammoths like running this tundra.
What?
And it actually, the reason they're doing it is it has to do, remember I was telling you about the wolf story in Yellowstone?
Mm-hmm.
So they reintroduced wolves in Yellowstone. All of a sudden, all of the rodents were getting eaten. So now vegetation could sprout up. So it secured the riverbanks. So now all of a sudden the rivers came back and then all the species. So it's an environmental thing. Part of the problem with some of these tundras is that there's no animals to knock over the trees.
So the trees overgrow, and then the grass can't grow because they can't get any sunlight.
Yes. So part of the point of introducing thousands of woolly mammoths is they will knock over the trees. Then all of a sudden vegetation grows. Now other species come back.
Interesting.
It's fascinating. It's really, really interesting.
How you like that guy at work? I got this idea. What are we going to do? We just need like 100,000 woolly mammoths.
Yes, and it'll all work out.
And the boss is like, that's great. Where do we get those?
Here's where it's really crazy.
And it hasn't got crazy yet?
No. Like, it gets really crazy. As Forrest is talking about this on the podcast, this company is going to have woolly mammoths in 2024. Like, they said, like, it is happening. Like, so this isn't like we're working on the genetics and like in 2035, right, like maybe we'll have one.
That's unbelievable.
It is like in 2024, they plan to reintroduce woolly mammoths into this tundra. It is wild that it is happening.
By the way, the greatest job ever.
Woolly mammoth creator?
No. As we used to think it was being Hugh Hefner was the greatest job ever. Now, the greatest job ever is the guy who gets to go look for extinct species.
Right.
Because how do you fail at your job? You just come home after a couple of days and nope, they're all gone.
Didn't find it.
Couldn't find any of them.
Couldn't find it. Rand says, I feel like we can knock over trees another way. It's so funny Rand says that because one of the ways they decided to it's so funny. One of the things that they did.
I don't know why I found that so funny.
Well, no, part of the reason they're doing it is because they actually did studies by knocking trees over. So they actually went to parts of the tundra, would like knock over various trees, and they would do like 1 year, 5 year, 10-year studies. And they realized like, oh my God, all you got to do is knock the trees over. And like all of a sudden, like things start to go back. So that was instead of the manpower of like, they want a natural way to knock over the trees. So what they realized was, oh my God, woolly mammoths knocked over the trees, and that's why everything looked the way it did.
What about Paul Bunyan and his big blue ox?
Do you believe in that stuff? We have the last thing we're going to talk about today is Hellen Keller. Do you want me to jump to it?
I will say this before, not yet. When maybe the first really, really sad story that I remember was a little kid remembering when Paul Bunyan lost by like a quarter of an inch or whatever against the chainsaw.
Okay.
Do you remember? I remember being like, what do you mean he lost?
Yeah.
I was crushed.
You know Paul Bunyan's not real, right?
Of course he's not real. But you know when Bambi's mom died, Bambi's mom wasn't real either, but it was still sad as hell.
Yeah. You know, I've never seen Bambi from start to finish.
Well, you will cry.
Okay.
Because first of all, you're a big baby. But when it was traumatic.
I'm sure
when Paul Bunyan lost, I can remember where I was at. I was distraught.
You were that bad.
How did he lose? What kind of ending is this? It'd almost be like having Rocky lose to Apollo in Rocky 1.
You know Rocky's not real, right?
He also lost to Apollo in Rocky 1.
The best show ever would be you just keep mentioning people, and at the end of it, I just keep going like, they're not real, right? That would be the best.
Whatever.
So if they're going to reintroduce them in 2024, they're going to have to grow up before they release them. So it's safe to assume they already have one created in captivity. That is a great question. Because the way they're doing this, the way it's described on podcasts, they basically have like artificial wombs.
I think
that's a really good point.
No. I think what he did was he confused our two topics of where the music is already done. It just hasn't been released yet. So he's thinking he just blended those in his mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to give him any credit.
No.
See, I think that's
these woolly mammoths grow up. They grow in like 2 weeks. It's just like add water.
It's a good because you can't just release like 24 baby woolly mammoths into the wild. Like there needs to be adult mammoths, right? It's a fair point.
Now he does have me thinking.
Yeah,
I wonder
if it's a fair point now that he's said it. The last mammoth was probably 4,000 years ago. My issue, they still don't know what led to their extinction and assume it wasn't solely due to environmental changes that occurred globally. So part of how they're doing this, they're finishing the DNA with Indian elephants. And so what they're hoping is that it will have, because they can like go in and manipulate the DNA strands, they're hoping that they'll be able to live in cold temperatures because of the woolly mammoth, right? But they'll also have tendencies in DNA from animals that currently have sustained on the planet.
Didn't they learn anything from Jurassic Park?
You would think so. Dude, like, again, this is happening. Like, this is a thing. Like, I know I'm telling you this and it feels like this, like, far off, like.
It sounds very science fiction-ish, and like the town is overrun by woolly mammoths and no one knows what to do.
This company is claiming that in 2024 they will have mammoths in the wild in this, like, tundra. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Crazy. Okay, I have down through here Brady's and Rogers. Real quick, are they going to retire?
You know, Brady had huge numbers again.
Yeah.
When they talk about, you know, what he threw for 4,700 yards, and
yeah,
I'd heard the Raiders.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams is there, so it's not like the Raiders, and he's from California.
Yeah.
I'd heard. Where else did I hear? New Orleans. I don't know. It's you almost. I one of the best things I ever heard anyone say when discussing this, and because you see people retire, and I know, like, when my brother retired, he went out on a 20-win season and was going well and could have gone on. And I heard Tim McCarver talk about this when Tim McCarver was a baseball broadcaster, and during his playing career. At the end of his career, he'd kind of become the personal catcher for Steve Carlton. Hold on, I'm trying not to read. I'm trying to focus on my story.
You're fine.
And Steve Carlton, who was a dominant pitcher with the Cardinals, then with the Phillies and Hall of Famer and all this stuff, and he hung on a while. He pitched with the Twins at the end. He pitched with Cleveland, and he was not nearly the dominant pitcher. And someone made a comment. I think it was broadcaster in a radio broadcaster, TV broadcaster, when McCarver was in the same vicinity. Mm. And he made the comment that Carlton should have gone out when he was on top, and he's embarrassing himself now, whatever. Mm. And McCarver made the comment. He said, "You have no idea how he wants to go out. Some guys want to go out on top, and some guys want to make sure they burned every drop of gas out of the tank."
Sure.
So for a guy like Brady, if somehow he's concerned that he is tarnishing his image, then that's one thing. If he's like, "I'm playing until they have to drag me off the field and no one will hire me again," then he's going to play next year. I think he's going to play.
It's an interesting conversation because I was just listening to JJ Redick talk about why he retired. And JJ Redick said the in-season had nothing to do with it. He goes, I would have been a 15th man for 5 years if they would have signed me. Like, that has nothing to do with it. He said, my problem was the off-season. He said, I no longer wanted to. He goes, the off-season's 5 times worse than in-season. He goes,
to be ready.
Goes, you're working out every day, strength and conditioning, you're shooting, all that. He goes, I didn't want to go through it again. And he goes, and that's when I knew it was time to hang it up.
Right.
So to me, like, if you're Brady, like, listen, if you find a team and you don't have to do anything more than what you want to do, maybe you keep going. If you're Rogers, if you find a team that lets you do Roger things and kind of be a little bit of an arrogant, story and
diva,
a little bit of a diva, but like you're allowed to kind of do, then like I think they'll do it. I think it all comes down to like, is there a situation where they can, I don't want to say ride it out, but is there a situation where they can kind of dictate their terms, do it their way, and show up and play on Sunday? And I think that will decide if they retire.
They're all just. Will Brady still like the mental challenge? I think Rogers loves the mental challenge. Sure. He just seems like that. He's a nerd. Mm-hmm. Like underneath the great athlete, he's a nerd.
Oh, absolutely.
And not that Brady isn't a football nerd, but I think Rogers is like a life nerd.
Yeah.
And so there's part of it, and I guess like where you are and where his kids are going to be now, and because I know, like at the end, one of the things my brother said, it was about just the planes and the constant travel and the constant. And he said, if there was a Major League Baseball team in Williamsport and I could be home half the time, I might pitch another year. But he's like, I'm home never of the time.
Yeah.
And that's part of the grind. So I'm sure that's why they mentioned Oakland.
Yeah.
Or, well, not Oakland, the Raiders. Now they're in Vegas.
Yeah.
But, I hadn't even thought about that. I was thinking he's going back to California, but now the Raiders are in Vegas. But, hey, if you're going to end the twilight of your career, what better place than Vegas? He's single. Well, he's got a girlfriend apparently, but
Yeah, Vegas wouldn't be an awful move for him.
Vegas would not be an awful place to end it.
It wouldn't be a bad move for him. Paul says, hey, are you guys ever going to host a show with topic as parental alienation? What do you think parental alienation is?
Oh.
I don't know either. I'm going to look it up, Paul. We're going to find out. I'm going to find out. Parental alienation. I'm going to look into it. I'll find out.
I mean, alienating your parents.
Is that what it is?
I would guess.
Parental alienation. Abandoning your parents?
No, not abandoning, because then it would be parental abandonment.
If only we had devices that you could simply type something.
I have one sitting here, and I'm not using it, so I'll make you do it. Because you do everything else. So why wouldn't I make you do it?
What something is. Parental alienation syndrome is a strategy whereby one parent intentionally displays to the child unjustified negative aim at the other parent. One parent intentionally displays to the child unjustified negativity aimed at the other parent.
Yeah, that's unfortunately it's very human naturistic.
I have one more thing that I want to get to before we.
It is one of the great advancements that society should have. Well, I'll save that for another topic. But
we'll look into it.
No, it is. It's unfortunate because actually, I tell this to people. My ex and I actually get along better now that we split. And the co-parenting, and that's one of the beauties of it is all we have to deal about now is the kids.
Sure.
But there is a I don't know. It just works. It works.
Sure.
Better this way, and we get along fine. And I think society has taught a lot of people that, like, whether it's a breakup. See, and you're like this. You're cool with your exes. Like there's none that if they saw you, they were going to stab you, right?
I'm okay with them.
Oh, okay. So you might be getting stabbed. You're just not stabbing them.
I have very little reason to stab it.
There's this societal aspect, I think, that for some reason we've been taught that when you break up or when you divorce, that there needs to be anger forever, and it just doesn't help, especially when there's kids involved, obviously. But even if there's not, it's just I don't get it. So, but there is a insecurity at. It's like when people break up and they're trying to decide to figure out which friends are going to side with me and which friends are going to side with them. And some people have great trouble with the fact that some of your friends they're going to side with both of you, and they don't. It's not their fight, and they're like, yeah, they're cool, and they're cool, and when you get to be like my age, it's basically like, well, how do they treat my kids? They were good to my kid. They're good to my kid. They're playing with their kids. And so what do I care? And it's too bad that their marriage ended or their relationship ended, but it's not my battle.
Right.
But some people really get territorial.
Sure.
And if that person is the worst person, and just because now I don't like that person, now nobody can like that person. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate, but it's way common.
Yeah. I've been spoiled and fortunate, and I have very little experience in that realm.
You'll see it as you get older. You'll see it.
Probably.
Yeah, it is. When you're not even my age, when you're 10 years from now, you will know divorced couples, and that are not necessarily best friends, but you'll know them, and you will be able to say like good divorced couple, bad divorced couple. And and the kids are the ones that are yo-yo.
Unfortunately, in the middle of it. I had one other. Do you think we can do it in like 10 minutes?
What is it?
So there is a TikTok conspiracy about Hellen Keller. Have you seen her?
You haven't told me anything about this. I don't know.
Okay.
My interest is piqued.
How are you, the main gist of Hellen Keller?
Yeah, the miracle worker.
Yeah, blind, deaf. Apparently she flew a plane. She wrote a bunch of books.
She did not fly a plane.
Okay, well this is perfect.
That was Amelia Earhart.
There's a big thing going on TikTok right now of essentially like millennials and Gen Z are trying to discredit Hellen Keller. So essentially people are saying that the story cannot possibly be true, that there are fabrications,
that she didn't fly a plane.
That there are exaggerations. All these. So you're on the not necessarily. I hate conspiracy is too strong a word because you're not saying Hellen Keller wasn't real. And you're not saying Hellen Keller didn't do some things. You're just simply implying that the story has taken on wings of itself. It is flown.
Did you go wings? Was that a pun? with the airplane. You did well.
What you're implying is that the story has flown above the proverbial truth of what might have happened.
I've always thought it was a fascinating aspect as to create communication. But because I saw the Miracle Worker, I saw the play. They did it at the CTL, and it was brilliant. The little kid that played Hellen Keller was unbelievable. And I can't think of her name. I know Hannah. I think for like normal, regular people like us, it's an easy jump to make. They're like, there's no way they could have done that. But because we couldn't grasp teaching someone to communicate in ways that we can't communicate. How do you teach them if they can't talk to you and they can't hear it? But there are other people who just kind of could get it. And just because we don't get it doesn't mean other people don't get it. So I don't, if you told me it was a little bit embellished, I don't think I would, like if God came down and said, yeah, it wasn't quite as accurate as, then I could buy that. But I just think it's one of those things that if we can't grasp it, then we just don't think it's possible.
That's a fair point. So what you're saying is she is so unique in the sense of we can most of us can do the things she couldn't do, and thus it's hard for us to even put ourselves in the space of what that would mean or how we would support.
No, my thought was there's no way you could possibly teach her, because how would you possibly teach her?
Wait, when you say teach her, you mean physically teach her, Hellen Keller,
yes,
or you mean teach about her?
No, Hellen Keller.
You got my wheels spinning now. So I think there's always like because my girlfriend is a behavior.
Right. She was one that came to mind. She would be better at this conversation than us.
Here's what's interesting. Like when I talk to her and I listen to her talk about helping kids, is that there's certain moments where the discussion has nothing to do with how to communicate. A lot of time it's cause and effect, right? And so if you were like really breaking down how to teach Hellen Keller, you wouldn't be like, very rarely would you worry about the fact that she couldn't talk or that she couldn't hear. You would immediately just say, okay, what can how do we reinforce positive behavior? How do we reinforce negative behavior? And so then you start to think about what are the things that she can do? What are the things that she does do?
So I get it. And that's why I even said like people who get it, I would have never thought that way.
Yeah. And so I do. Some of the stuff though is wild. Like I say all this, like I think Hellen Keller was a real person. I think Hellen Keller probably was able to do things that you or I wouldn't expect her to be able to do. But like some of it, I think I have it here. Hold on one second. Like for example, she piloted a plane. Now they say that the plane had accommodations made for her. Like,
yeah, it had another pilot.
Yeah, flying a plane she wrote 12 books. That one I find interesting.
I can imagine that.
Writing 12 books? So I went back and forth on this one because a part of me thinks to myself, like, it's probably one of the few things you could do, like given that.
Yeah, I could do that.
If you have the accommodations, you have the time. Like it's not, like I'm not trying to even be funny. Like you have the time to sit there and decide what do you want to write and what do you want to write about. But there's some like, have you seen her hand? This is one of them. Have you seen her handwriting? It's unbelievably good. Her handwriting's ridiculously good. Now, I've seen like there's accommodations for like they had like further than Braille. Like apparently they had like guiders.
Okay.
So like she could figure out which one and then it would guide but I don't know. I mean, it feels a little bit like they've flown above what the story probably really was. That's what it feels like to me. That's where I have landed on with all of this.
That doesn't totally surprise me. But anyway,
so
I do think it
was just curious.
How's my wife?
We were just the producers were curious of your opinion on the Hellen Keller conspiracy.
I would believe that some of these things have grown in legend. But I think most things historically have grown in legend.
That's a good question too. That would be a good one for later on. How is there anything that hasn't grown? Is there anything that gets diminished over time and not expanded?
Oh, I'm sure there are. But I don't, and these are bad examples. I just go back to sports because that's where I'm at. Tiger Woods lost a lot of tournaments.
Sure.
If Jack Nicklaus took second more than he took first. But that's not
the story. That's kind of the point I'm making.
But the legend of Tiger Woods is every time he teed it up, he won.
That's what I'm saying.
So things do, I think, so many things. So have any of them diminished? I'm sure there are, and I would need to think of some that were great accomplishments that have just diminished over time.
You can't use like a bad, like something awful happening. Like that doesn't count.
No. Well, I think there's lots of things that in the moment were that people don't appreciate how grand it was. Like if you've done any research or know anything about the story of the Altoona curve with the train, how much it almost like saved the war.
Right.
And that this engineering marvel that is right here in Pennsylvania that people are just like, oh, it's a train track. Well, yeah, but they couldn't get anything from here to there without it.
Right.
And but now you just be like, oh, so they built a train track. Who cares? Look at all the other stuff we can do. I can send pictures all the way around the world with the click of, and like, so it's, I think, technological or engineering or those advancements sometimes throughout, they lose the wonder of what they were at the time.
I see what you're saying. No, that's a good one. That's a really, really good one. Like the first time somebody actually had like a light bulb in their house and they turned it on, and how fascinating that would have been.
Yes.
And that gets diminished over. That's a very, very good one.
Because now we just do it all over the place. Now you're so unimpressed by it, you don't even turn light bulbs on.
But but that was just to kind of wrap it like full circle with Hellen Keller. Doesn't that make her story less believable though? Because like
I'm sure some of it. Yeah.
Don't you feel like we should be getting some of these stories like once a decade? Like, oh my gosh, like this person did this and they had all these disabilities. And like, I feel like we don't get those.
No, I do know. And it's to go back, and this is a bad comparison, but like the I Have a Dream speech, why did they pick I Have a Dream as opposed to Now is the Time or other catchphrases that he used? When you go back through, what was I just, like the first, like Jackie Robinson, everybody knows Jackie Robinson. Who was the first black NFL player?
I don't know.
Was it Marion Motley?
Maybe.
Was it?
Am I proving your point?
And then they go, yes. And you're like, who was the first black NBA player?
I don't know.
I don't know that either. And so like, these are ones, but everybody knows Jackie Robinson because of the time and was Joe Louis the first black heavyweight champion?
I'm not sure.
I know Carl Lewis, or not Carl Lewis, Jesse Owens, Carl Lewis, got it. But because some of these have like established in time, like you were talking about at the moment. I remember when this is where we're all over the map, but still on the same map. When Madonna kissed Britney Spears at the award show, she kissed Christina Aguilera too, but nobody talked about that. It was that Madonna kissed Britney Spears because at the time Britney was so much more tabloid fodder, even though Christina Aguilera had a brilliant career as well. And, they're just, I don't know. So yes, why do some stories last and some stories don't, and some stories grow and some stories fade? That it's just, I don't know. I think it's just a stupid little timing coincidence of life.
The other, I didn't realize this either. Hellen Keller died in 1960s.
Okay.
I thought Hellen Keller was way further back in history. My understanding of Helen, like this is a bad example, but like my grandparents were alive when Hellen Keller was alive. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I thought Hellen Keller, I thought we were talking like 1800s, like post-Civil War. Like, I did not realize that we were that close to, we were 2 generations away from Hellen Keller, which I think also makes the conversation even more fascinating. Anything
do you know? Yes. Do you know when Pablo Picasso died?
I just saw this. It's not anywhere near as far back in history as you would think. It's actually way more recent.
We'll put it this way. Pablo Picasso and I were alive at the same time.
Yeah.
He died in 1973.
That one's crazy. And then I just sent you the Biden one too.
Yeah.
What one was that?
I don't remember.
Biden is closer to, it's really wild.
I remember you sending it. Now I can't remember what the stat was, but it was, when I read it, I was like, wow.
If you're bored, look up the Biden, like closer to this than that stuff. It's really, really. I was just telling Hannah, there are kids in college today, or no, this is what it is. There are kids being born today that are going to see 2100.
Oh yeah.
Think about that. Like that one, I like had to freeze up for a second and kind of like, oh my God. Like,
assuming the earth is still here. And
assuming everything's still going on, but like you are walking around with people right now that will see 2100.
Yeah, well, people are supposed to be living longer.
The U.S. is down, but yes, they're supposed to.
Did you see China's population decrease?
Yeah.
For the first time.
There was another really interesting guest on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he talked about like population collapse in some of these countries and how they're dealing with it. And it was really, I don't know if I agree with everything he's saying, but to listen to him talk about the statistics are really, really stunning. What the fallout of that is, I don't know if I agree with him, but the numbers are like staggering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, that is crazy.
Interesting. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Oh, wait, we have it. We have it? Do we have it? Biden was born closer to Lincoln's inauguration speech.
Yes, that was it.
Than his own.
That was it. I just watched Lincoln again the other night. You've seen that movie, right?
I saw it once.
Oh, you need to watch it again.
Yeah.
It is so...
the Biden was born closer to Lincoln's inauguration is just, that one's a mind blower. Really, really breaks the skull there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
It also makes you realize how not far back that stuff was.
Well, and I should know this, wasn't Zachary Taylor, a president that was born in the 1700s still has a grandson alive?
Something like that.
That
one's a little bit of a stretch, but I get where you're going with it. Are you going to make me wait?
I'm going to make you wait. So, Phil.
Phil with what? I don't even know I thought you were talking about the kid on Home Improvement who did all the Disney stuff. Zachary Taylor.
Oh, grandson died.
Thomas.
Uh-oh. All right. So, 10th president, I can't read. 10th president, John Tyler.
Okay.
So he was president. Come on, give me the better details now. He was the 10th president.
Okay.
So whenever Lincoln was what, 14?
His grandson
16?
is alive or was alive?
He died in 2020.
That's pretty incredible. So the 10th president's grandson was alive.
Gardner Tyler Jr. was born in 1925 when his father was 70.
Okay.
And John Tyler had him so he lived to be 95. So Tyler was like in his 70s or maybe even 80, had a kid who had a kid in the 70s. But yes, I think he was born. He was in his 60s when he was born. Why won't it just give me the dates? This is a horrible article. You know why they're doing it? They're spreading it out to make me scroll, and then they didn't give it to me anyway. When was he born? John Tyler, who assumed the presidency of the death. Oh, he became president in 1841. I think he was born in 1790.
Okay.
So there, a president born in 1790 had a grandson who was just alive in 2020.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy. U.S. history is fascinating for the fact that it's all way closer than what we remember it.
Did you know this one? Hold on. While you're here, do people have anywhere to go? No, I have a meeting at 1:30. I have 13 minutes. And the good thing about that meeting is I don't know if it's here, if I have to go somewhere. I just know I have a meeting at 1:30. Hold on. Why are you laughing at me? I don't understand. I don't understand why you do that. You laugh at me just because I'm old.
I laugh at you?
Living Civil War widow. Give me a guess. Last living Civil War widow. When did she die? She was a wife of a Union or Confederate soldier.
I mean, things were crazy back then. So for all I know, she could have been like 13. So, and she could have lived to be 103. So I'm going to say Civil War widow, 30 plus another 60. I'm going to say like 1970.
2020.
How is that possible? That can't be possible. A Civil War widow?
She wasn't married to him during the Civil War, but he fought in the Civil War. Last surviving widow of a Union soldier and last surviving widow of a soldier overall died. She died December 16th.
Okay. So he wasn't so she was a widow because when you say Civil War widow, you make it sound like she was widowed because of the Civil War.
Oh no.
Okay.
She is a widow to a Civil War. She died in the midst of the Great Depression. In the midst of the Great Depression, at 17 years old, she married a 93-year-old guy who had served in the 14th Missouri Cavalry.
And she was alive until 2020. Here's some fact checkers. The Biden-Lincoln thing isn't right. Lincoln was inaugurated in 1861. Biden was born in 1942. Biden inaugurated in 2020. 81 years between Lincoln and Biden, 78 between Biden and his inauguration. Are they, maybe they're tipping their hand?
No. Second inauguration. Because he won re-election before he was assassinated.
So there you go. That's what it would be. Can we assume that Mark speaking his actions / thoughts out loud is due to a lack of internal dialogue? That's a very fair point.
That is not. Well, I have an internal dialogue. I have an external dialogue. I have lots of dialogue.
Isn't that schizophrenia? I think multiple dialogues.
No, it's not. Schizophrenia is different. Schizophrenia.
What's multiple dialogues?
Multiple personality and schizophrenia are different diseases.
Okay, so what would multiple dialogues be?
Multiple personality disorder. That's what it's called.
How do you know this? You're like so sure.
Because I know this.
No, right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just shocked that
schizophrenia is more. That is one of the things in society that's been mislabeled.
Okay.
They think that people who have multiple personalities are schizophrenic. They're not. Schizophrenia is more of a paranoia. You see things. Multiple personality is like the people who were mostly abused that have the different
inner dialogues.
Yes.
Wow, you are like on top of that.
I know some stuff.
I know. I'm just surprised. I would not have thought that was like
I wish I knew more marketable stuff.
All right. You need to go to a meeting. We don't know where.
I don't know where it is.
We know when, but we don't know
need to text.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. Thank you to our Midday Show producers. Thank you to everybody who commented and shared. We really, really appreciate it. We'll see you guys on Friday.
Yes. I do know who the meeting is with, so that's a start.
That's a start. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We'll see.